I didn't plan to say this out loud. I only noticed my hands shaking when I picked the photograph up again. So I turned it face down, like I always do. My name is Samuel. I'm 85 years old. I live alone now, in a house that still remembers voices better than I do. Evenings have a sound to them. Not silence exactly, more like something holding its breath. The photograph rests on the small table by the window. I don't need to look at it to know what it shows. I've memorized it by accident. The paper has gone thin. The corners are soft from years of being touched, then ignored. There's sunlight in it. Too much sunlight, maybe. The kind that makes you think everything will keep going the same way. I used to leave it face up. For a long time I needed to see it. Then one day I didn't. It isn't dramatic. There wasn't a decision. Just a morning when I noticed it was already turned over. I tell myself it's to keep it from fading. Light does that to old things. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is harder to hold without shaking. I was younger in that photograph. Not young, just younger. Still under the impression that time was something I could spend carelessly. There are two of us in the picture, standing close enough that our shoulders touch, close enough that no one would question what we were to each other. I remember the day it was taken more clearly than I remember yesterday. The air was warm, not hot, one of those days that doesn't ask anything from you. Someone else took the picture. I don't remember who. That feels important now, though it didn't then. We didn't pose for long. No adjustments, no second shot. Just a click, and life went on. I didn't know that was the version of us the world would keep. I'll stop here for a moment. This part always tightens my chest if I move too fast.
I didn't think much about photographs back then. They were just things people did, proof that a day happened. That picture sat on a shelf for years. Different shelves, different rooms. It followed me without asking. Sometimes I'd dust around it. Sometimes I'd move it so the sun wouldn't hit it directly. I told myself that meant I cared. The person standing next to me in that photograph had a way of looking at me that I didn't understand at the time, not fully. I mistook it for familiarity, comfort, something ordinary. We were good at being ordinary together. We shared meals without talking much, long drives where the radio stayed low, an unspoken agreement not to ask questions that might change things. I was proud of how steady my life felt, how nothing seemed to shake it. What I didn't see was how carefully everything was balanced, how much effort it took to keep certain words from landing between us. There were moments, small ones, easy to ignore, a pause before a goodbye that lasted half a second too long, a hand resting on my arm, then pulling away as if it had made a mistake. Looks exchanged when other people were around, quiet and quick. I noticed them. I just didn't let myself name them. Naming things has a way of making them demand space, and I was very protective of my space. Life kept moving. Jobs changed. People came and went. We stayed. That felt like proof enough. The photograph caught us in a moment when none of that had fractured yet, before time started asking questions I didn't want to answer. Years later, the picture had already begun to fade. Not badly, just enough that I could see it happening. I remember holding it one afternoon and realizing I was the only one left who would remember exactly how that day felt. The warmth, the ease. That was the first time my throat tightened when I looked at it. I didn't turn it face down then, not yet. That came later, after the house grew quieter, after the chair across from mine stopped being used. I'll pause here again. This part still asks more of me than I expect.
There was no argument, no final conversation that people imagine when they think about endings. One day, there was a hospital room, the kind that smells too clean, like it's trying to erase what happens inside it. I sat in a chair that didn't quite fit my back. I remember thinking I should have brought a sweater. It's strange what the mind chooses to hold on to. We didn't talk much that day, not because there wasn't anything to say, because there was too much. Their hand rested on the blanket, thin and pale. I watched it instead of their face. I don't know why. Maybe I was afraid of what I'd see if I looked too closely. At one point, they squeezed my fingers, just once, a small pressure, like a question. I didn't answer it. I told myself there would be another chance, another visit, another day when words wouldn't feel so heavy in my mouth. I've spent a lifetime trusting later. It never felt like a risk. After that, the photograph moved from shelf to drawer, from drawer to table. Closer, but somehow harder to look at. I tried to keep living the way I always had. Routine has a way of pretending nothing has changed, but the house noticed. It noticed the missing footsteps, the way one cup stayed clean in the cupboard. That was when I started turning the photograph face down. At first, only on certain days, days when memory felt too sharp. Eventually, it stayed that way. Face down feels like a compromise. I didn't throw it away. I didn't frame it either. I let it exist without asking anything of me. But at night, when the house settles, I know it's there. I know exactly where. Time has made a lot of things quieter. Pain softens around the edges if you give it long enough. But some understandings don't fade. They just wait until you're too tired to keep pushing them away. I'm going to stop here again. There's only a little left, but it matters. I don't think regret arrives all at once. It settles in slowly, like dust you don't notice until the light hits it just right. I used to believe that staying quiet was a kind of kindness, that not disturbing what worked was the same as protecting it. That belief stayed with me for decades. It shaped more of my life than I care to admit. Now, at 85, I can feel time differently. Not rushing, just narrowing. The photograph hasn't changed. The people in it are still standing close, still unaware of what they're about to lose by staying careful. I'm the one who's changed. I'm the one who understands what that closeness was asking for. Some nights I turn the picture over, just for a moment, long enough to remind myself that it was real. Then I turn it back again. There are things that can't be carried forever without cost, and there are truths that wait until you're old enough to stop arguing with them. I don't know what happens after this life. I only know what I'm taking with me. This felt important to say while I still could. Not to explain, just to leave it here the way it is. If you're listening, you don't have to respond. You can sit with it for a while, or share a thought if one comes quietly.